Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host, and I have a really cool guy on this morning, Bill Hirsch. He is an architect, an author. The guy is absolutely amazing. I can't wait for you guys to get to know him. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And we're back. Welcome. So I have a very special guest on today, Bill Hirsch. I want to go ahead and bring him on the show. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you being here. So we have some folks joining us on the live stream already this morning. Ernest Odell, Larry Schneider, Cindy Hurley. Got some great people on. So, Bill, you and I talked the other day about the show and, why I started it. I started it to help people have a breakthrough in life. And, you have an interesting story. I love the fact, well, I'm going to let you tell what the book is about and the books. You have multiple books.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that, but let's start with where you were born and raised.
All right. I was born in the Philadelphia area, Bryn Mawr to be exact. And then we moved around a little bit. My dad sold office furniture and he would move up by getting new jobs in different areas. So we lived in the Philadelphia area first, and then Michigan for a number of years, then Northern Virginia. And then we got to the point where I was off to college. And I put myself through college like so many people have. And really, my parents couldn't afford that. So there was a lot of working involved. The draft board got after me and I lost my deferment for a while. Took me a little while to grow up completely and apply myself. I guess I'm not alone in that. No. But once I finally got focused, and the Navy had something to do with that, I went back to graduate school in architecture. So my first degree turned out to be in psychology.
Wow.
And then my second degree, I have a master's in architecture from University of Virginia. Wahoo! That's our cheer.
So wait, you were in the Navy?
Naval Air Reserve. Somehow I managed to get into the reserves without any political influence at all. And this was at a time when Vietnam was going great guns. So it was really hard to find a spot in the reserves. But I did manage to get in, and that let me continue on in graduate school while I did my reserve obligations.
Wow. Okay. So you didn't go to Vietnam then?
Nope. I went to a couple of bases in the U.S. I was in the Naval Air Reserve.
Okay.
And I got some really good advice getting out of boot camp. One other guy told me, now get in a squadron where they don't have hooks on the tails of the planes, because then they can't land on aircraft carriers.
Right.
So I did that. And I was in a support squadron for a while, and then a submarine chasing squadron for a while. So I did my thing.
Wow.
And I had grown up by then, as I say, and I applied myself, and I got ahead of things in my schoolwork and ended up being top in my class. You've got to get going earlier and not just coast along. So that was a big breakthrough for me right there.
Yeah. So when you were in, so you were going to graduate school for architecture,
right,
while you were in the Navy?
Yes. But the Navy only comprised a weekend reserve duty per month at that point. I'd already been through boot camp and training.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. So when did you get, like, was that at Great Lakes? Is that where you went to boot camp, or?
No, they had one in Millington, Tennessee, near
Oh,
Memphis, for the reserves, and it was an accelerated boot camp because
okay.
of the war and everything, and needing people in the military. So I did all of that, and then went to New Orleans for training,
Okay.
and then got in a squadron. I was actually at Andrews Air Force Base. On the other side of the field is a Naval Air Station. And so that's where we were. And then I was stationed at Patuxent River in Maryland for a while. So that's
My,
pretty much where I spent the time.
that's my brother was in Patuxent River
Oh, really?
in the Navy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, but he was full time for 10 years. So he was on a carrier during the Gulf War. Actually, he was in the first battle group. But yeah, so you ended up. Look what Robert Brooker said: the therapeutic architect. I love it. Psychology and architecture—they just go hand in hand.
Well, so, at the time, I didn't know how they would go together.
Yeah.
And I did some independent research when I was in graduate school, learning about cognition and architecture. And I did a psychiatric hospital as my chosen thesis project. And so even at that time, I was already interested in how people react to the built environment, which is what we architects call it, the things that we build and our places we inhabit as human beings. That's the built environment. And we as architects manipulate that and create that. So
Wow.
I already had a strong interest in how that is perceived by people and how they react to it, how they respond to it.
Hey, we have a famous Hollywood actor on today, Glenn Morshower, my buddy Glenn.
Hi, Glenn.
Yeah. So I think it's because I know what you're going to talk about, and because we talked for quite a while the other day, right. And I think it's really interesting. I think people are going to find it really interesting because, well, I'm going to let you talk about it. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too early, but so you went to school, you got your master's degree in architecture, and then you did the Mike Brady thing from the Brady Bunch and went and got a job at a big firm and lived happily ever after.
Well, during graduate school, again, because I was putting myself through school, and I now was married and we had our daughter, and I was working 30 hours a week for an architect in Charlottesville at the same time. So it was a really hectic schedule.
Yeah.
But I really learned how to get things accomplished and not just burn up the time that was available because I had to. Sometimes when you have no other choice, you learn pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then after you're done with school and you have a professional degree, to become an architect, you need to apprentice for a couple of years, work for a registered architect. So I had some of that already by working my way through school.
Yeah.
But then I got a job in Wilmington, Delaware, and moved there.
Okay.
And I worked there a couple of years till I was eligible to sit for the exam, the nice 5-day exam that we architects have to take. And I passed and became registered and went out on my own immediately with a friend. And we quickly discovered we had no business connections, and it found it very hard to find actual projects to do. So that began the struggle of trying to make a living as an architect. It always sounds like a classy thing to be, but it doesn't always come with a big paycheck.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I was I think I mentioned this the other day. I don't know, but I grew up watching the Brady Bunch, and Mike Brady on the show is an architect, right?
There you go. He had a nice house too.
Look at this beautiful house. They have a maid. They have everything. I want to be an architect. I went through a phase. I remember as in my early teens thinking I'm going to be an architect because I want a housekeeper in that big house. And
Sure.
but that's not necessarily the way that it goes.
No, as a matter of fact, if you were to do a CAT scan of architects' brains, the business area isn't atrophied; it's missing, totally missing. We just don't get it. And I was talking to a couple of other architects the other day, and it was the very same story, that we want to design the building, and we'll do it at any fee you suggest. And halfway through, we learn that we're losing money. We're terrible. So
Wow.
that's kind of the career. And then after I'd been doing it for about 20 years, I was doing all different building types and getting along. But then I moved to North Carolina in the Raleigh-Durham area because a past client had asked me to design another house for them there. And that opened the floodgates for custom residential design, which is what I've specialized in since the mid-90s. And I learned a lot. And along the way, I thought, gee, I ought to write down some beginning notes, starter notes for my new clients that give them background about the process and things that they need to think about and what they can expect. And as I got writing, I got a little carried away, and it turned into my first book, Designing Your Perfect House, which is on the shelf right there behind me. And that came out in 2008 and has sold nicely. And that was a huge tipping point in my career because I went instantly from being an architect who was hoping someone would hire me to being an architect where people would call me and hope I would accept their project. And this is kind of a stunning thing because you feel like it's just me. I'm still the same person, but you're perceived differently. So my unequivocal recommendation to anybody who has a field where they're reasonably expert, write it. And as soon as you write it, even if you just have a few books to hand out to prospective clients or business contacts, you now are perceived as a much higher level expert than before you wrote the book. You also will learn more while you write it because once you go to writing it, you got to make sure you're right.
Right.
Right. Because if you just say it to one person, maybe you didn't quite get it right. But if it's going to be on that page for a long time, you need to check yourself.
That's right. You got to research.
Right.
You're writing a book. Yeah. So you wrote the first book, and then, I mean, did it just like start? And at this point, were you at least making some money, or were you
actually, once I moved to North Carolina and started doing custom residential, I had a lot of work, and so that was a big transition.
Were these like little houses, or were they?
Most of them were in a gated community with a Jack Nicklaus golf course as a centerpiece, a property called Governor's Club in Chapel Hill. Okay. Coincidentally required an architect for each project. Wow. This was wonderful from my viewpoint. And so I kept getting referrals. My clients were happy, fortunately, and they'd end up playing golf with somebody who just newly bought property. And they get talking about the process of building their house. And my clients would say, well, you need to talk to Bill. And, I'd send them a nice thank you basket after that. It was, unsolicited endorsements that really made a big difference. And I enjoyed that for quite a while. And then the book came out right when the economy tanked in 2008. It was perfect timing, November of 2008.
When the housing market crashed.
Everything. And then, so I thought, oh, at least I got it finished, or I would have bailed out halfway through with this. And then that caused the phone to ring. And I got a project in New Jersey as a result of it. And then another one and another one, started doing projects around the country. And I got interviewed by the Wall Street Journal about entrepreneurs who write books. And I got quoted in there saying, my book was my life raft through the recession, which it actually was.
Wow.
I even did a house in Latvia. I had to look up on a map where that was. And the folks
Where is
asked,
that?
it is between Poland and Russia,
Okay.
kind of across
That's
the
what I thought.
Baltic Sea from Sweden.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to pop over. So we did
Pop over.
pop over.
Jeez.
They have Putin breathing down their neck. You really those world politics when you go to a place like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice place, but they're little. They have an ideal port that Putin covets, and they have reason to be nervous.
Wow.
So
So you go to Latvia and for what? Just to meet with them?
to meet with them, learn about traditional Latvian architecture. They said that the young architects were all modernists and the older architects were Soviet trained. So unless you were going to build a prison cell block, they weren't going to be real good at doing a house for you.
Wow.
And the Latvian traditions had been lost. So here I am in America, asked to do a traditional Latvian house, which was great fun because I got to learn a lot about it, do research, and then put myself in that mode where I was thinking, if I were a Latvian architect, how would I do this? And it turned out very nicely. So
now, when you're doing this, I'm curious, do you have to learn? I would assume you have to learn like the building materials and like what's what. Is that correct? Like,
right, but they're not too different, really.
okay,
Everything's in metric, a little bit different, and they have. But it's nice to learn how they do things in different places. I have a house under construction now on the coast of Maine, and they look at things in a more old-fashioned way of building, let's say, where it's not about just get it done fast. And I learn things from them, and hopefully I bring some things to the table that I them. So like I say, I've done projects everywhere. Did one in Hawaii. If anybody needs a house in Hawaii, I'm available to do another one there.
do you have to visit the site?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, do you really? Like,
Yeah.
you do have
Well,
to visit.
often I do. Sometimes
Wow.
I do abbreviated design services only, and then I may go to the site once and not do follow-up during construction administration.
Wow.
So I do all of that, and I have an associated architect who's younger than I am, and we work together, and he has a staff of a couple of people. So we're not big, but you don't get shoveled to the back room. If you hire us, you end up getting me and my collaborating architect, Keith, right there at all the meetings. We're the contact.
Now, I assume, and I hate to assume, but I'm going to assume that these are multi-million-dollar projects.
Not always. The small projects are fun. I like to do remodels. I have one project I'm going to talk to some people about. It's a $500,000 budget. So, it's kind of hard to justify architect fees if you get much below that.
Yeah.
But even then, I'll do some hourly consulting for people. They'll send me their plans and their notes about what they'd like to do. And then we get on a web conference and I give them suggestions. Sometimes it's confirmation that what they're doing is right. Other times it's, hey, have you looked at it like this? This might solve that problem. And they get a lot for their hourly fee. So I like to do those once in a while because I help people. I consulted with somebody for a house in the United Arab Emirates that way.
Wow.
I didn't pop over there.
No.
No.
Yeah. So like if somebody says, I want to move my bathroom to another part of the house, like that's where they would call you. And
They could,
I mean,
especially if they had plans ready to go. Those are hard to do long distance
yeah, I'm sure.
unless they've got the documentation, and then and then we can help them out with things like that. But we
Right.
don't really look for that work. It's hard to
Right.
schedule that all out. But I don't want to be typecast as the guy who just does big, expensive houses. That's
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you can. It's a little harder to do the smaller houses. It's a tighter puzzle to solve,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
keeps you sharp.
Wow. So you've like again, I know that you've done a lot of work on some very famous golf courses too.
A few.
Yeah.
I have a project on Pinehurst #2 right now.
That's insane, man.
Mhm.
So, and those are definitely $1 million plus homes.
Yeah, that particular one. It's not terribly big. It's going to be maybe right at $1 million.
Okay.
It's
Not-
pretty easy to spend $1 million on a house before you know it.
yeah, it is. So, what inspired you to go from, I mean, because you had your undergrad was psychology, and along the way you decided, no, I'm
That
going
was-
to do architecture.
It was actually the other way around. I wanted to do architecture, and because I couldn't get myself into school because I had not applied myself, I had to get a degree to keep from getting drafted. So the psychology came along for that, and then I kept going and kept pressing. I wouldn't give up, as
Wow.
they say,
Yeah.
and I got myself through architecture. And
Wow.
actually, the dean at University of Virginia was my biggest advocate. He stood by me when other people didn't. So I owe a lot to him. I was very grateful to his support.
Yeah.
And so, but when I got done, then I started to see that the psychology had a benefit in my architecture career. And that's really what led me to the second book, The Well-Centered Home.
Okay, the well-centered home. I want to pop that banner that I made up. So there's the website for the well-centered home. That's for the book, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, so the first book was what? Just
It was to help people become better informed clients, know what to expect, but it also had a lot to say about the architectural theory, let's say, or the psychology of it, and how you get your house to be your house. So the title says that, designing your perfect house, with the emphasis that your house, perfect house, is different from my perfect house or somebody else's. So how do we do that? There are things to think about and things to plan for that make that happen. And so my new book is really taking those concepts that I presented in more architectural terms and saying, look, they apply to everybody's home, whether you're building a new one or not. Your existing home is a perfect candidate for becoming better centered, a term that I created to describe the sense that your home can be your most comfortable and de-stressing and rejuvenating place. And that simply by occupying your home, once you've improved it in these ways, which is rearrangements, not necessarily any kind of building, your home will do this in a better way, and you become more mindful, self-aware, and happier.
So my question though is like, why, if I'm going to have a home built, I'm going to probably start with a builder, right? Isn't that where most
a lot of people do, but I would suggest that the builders will design it just so they have a project to build. Going to an architect or a competent home designer too, and one that wants to listen to you personally, is a better way to start. And then the architect can help you select the builder. The architect stays on your side of the table, so to speak. He or she should be looking out for your interests entirely. and bring their experience and expertise into the conversation. Because usually people who are building or remodeling a house have never done it before. They're very good at what they do, but they don't have any experience in that area.
So you're saying that, so I can't just go to, I mean, I already know because I've been there, but like, go to a builder and say, I mean, I'm trying to wrap my brain around, because I've never hired an architect, right? So I'm trying to wrap my brain around where, like, if I go, hey, I want an oversized jacuzzi tub in the master bath, and the, is that where you come in and go, well, this is how it would have to be laid out? This is, or
right.
How does that work?
Right. I start with a program, which would be a list of desires and requirements, rooms, how they relate to each other, target sizes, and then appointments like the jacuzzi tub. And that's a list that keeps getting added to and revised. But that's our roadmap. I like to say that if you don't know where you're going, you never know when you get there. So you've got to have some destination in mind, and that's what the program would be. Like I say, it can be revised as you go along, but you got to start out with an objective. And then you start laying things out, critiquing them. Often it feels like 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, but that's net 1 step forward. So that,
right.
That does help. And so that's kind of the process, and you gradually get into finer and finer detail as you go along.
Yeah. So do you end up in, I don't want to say arguments, but do you end up in intense conversations with builders?
No, I like to diffuse that right at the beginning.
Do you?
Yeah, a lot of architects don't, and it's unfortunate, where they feel like they have to assert themselves or make it clear that they've got their fancy education and therefore they're smarter than everybody else. Yeah. And that's a bad way to work.
Yeah.
For one, the reason I don't do it is I'm not happy doing that. And, my overriding philosophy is make Bill happy. So if I can keep that in mind, I just try to do things that make me happy. And I'm happiest when I'm happy with other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So usually if you diffuse that barrier and the builder knows that you're approachable and that you're not going to do a power move on him or her, that, the things go along nicely. So you break down that wall right at the beginning.
But you have the interest of the homeowner in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're on their side. So if the builders, I don't know. I don't know. I'm imagining that builders are trying to stay within certain budgets that have been established and things of that nature. And you've got to come in and go, no, you can't use that cheap material. You have to use this material.
Exactly. There's a lot of that because we write up a specification that names those things. The budget should be talked about right away. Remember, there's no business portion of their mind, so you have to work around that. You have to make sure they recognize that your budget is a real thing. And you're not designing, $2 million house on an $800,000 budget.
Right.
That's a bad day when you get the prices back on that.
Yeah.
And if you can engage a builder early, if you have one that you plan to work with, they can be helpful in keeping the budget with some preliminary estimates from preliminary plans.
Yeah. So do you see builder? I mean, you work with probably a lot of reputable builders.
Absolutely.
I would imagine there's not many you work with that are famous for doing shortcuts and.
No, I've testified against them in court. Some of those over the years.
Have you really?
Yeah, I've done some expert witness stuff, and it's appalling what you find has been done. But then on the other hand, there are quite a number of really good builders who are really good people.
Yeah,
who are in it for an honest living. They They get great satisfaction out of creating something physical and tangible, and they have a lot of pride in their skills. And those are the builders that you like to work with. The guy you invite over for a cup of coffee after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Charles says my contractor wanted our budget up front and he planned everything out based on our budget.
That's a good thing. It shouldn't be a mystery. And you shouldn't be working along with one of you thinking one number is the budget and other people thinking another thing is the budget, because that's doomed. You're going to hit the wall someday. So if the budget doesn't match the expectations, learn that the first day.
Yeah.
And adjust one or the other or a little of both. And that's what the programming is all about. So I'll take the program and I'll break down some target square footages for the items that we have planned, and say, look, I think it's, the budget's going to be about here. And if that doesn't match, you haven't gone very far, and you try to make those things even up.
Yeah. So you get into like with the first book, it's basically how to plan and build the home that you desire. The next book is the well-centered home. And what was the catalyst for that? What made you decide that I'm gonna write a book about a well-centered home, and what does that mean?
It means that it's a home that matches you in a psychological way. It's sort of your recharging station for the soul, let's say, a place that feels really good to you. The idea came to me rather suddenly when it sort of hit me that everything that I've been doing to design homes that are suited for my clients could be described and proposed in a way that would be applicable to anybody, even if your home is a small studio apartment or something more elaborate, because the adjustments that you can make to improve the centering of your home have to do with what may seem like minor things, like some furniture rearrangements or increasing a view to the outdoors, or removing little irritants or things that disrupt the energy in your home that I call pebbles. Pebbles would be like a pebble in your shoe that you can walk along, but it's annoying and it makes it a little harder to walk.
Yeah.
Well, a squeaky door in your home would be a pebble, and you don't get around to fixing it. You've lived with it, but once you fix it, you go, "Oh, that's good," and you feel better.
Yeah.
Pearls, on the other hand, would be things that you're adding in to increase the joy or the increase how much you like your space and gives you stimulation, mental stimulation. So that might be a piece of artwork, that might be something handcrafted. It might be an enhanced view out a window. Maybe your view focuses on your yard and you go out there and plant an ornamental tree. Now, when you glance out that window, you've got this focal point out there, and your inner self responds to that, and you become happier. And you don't overtly think, "Oh, I'm happier because I see that tree," but the effect is still happening to you. And if you do a number of these things in your home and they're focused on you personally and your home body type, then you have a good effect. And the centering means that in the day you're sort of swinging from one thing to the other, and when you get home, you'd like all of those things to kind of come together and put you in a comfortable, centered space. It's the same thing we try to do with meditation, but I contend that your home can do this relatively automatically and in the background if you work at fine-tuning it so the effect is stronger and positive.
And I asked you on the phone, I'm going to ask you again, is this similar to like the feng shui thing, or what's the difference between what you're talking about and feng shui?
Sure. Feng Shui is similar in that it is a home planning system or a guide, and it's been around for centuries, obviously, but it is a strict mapping. So you draw a Bagua map of your home, and it has 9 sectors, and in those sectors, certain things are supposed to be there, certain materials, certain colors, certain orientations, things like that. And that works, but it's a one size fits all type of approach. Home centering, as I'm defining it, looks at who you are and what your inclinations and tendencies are. And it gives you freedom to make these adjustments and fine tunings so that they respond to you personally. You know, your home, Ken, is going to be different from my home, and you're going to respond to some things differently than I do. Is one right and the other wrong? Well, certainly not. The things that are pebbles, we could probably identify those. You know, the door that won't close right, or the echoey sound in a room. But the pearls would be things that would be much more customized to you. Although we both would recognize them as pearls, but one might be more valuable to you than to me, and vice versa.
Yeah. Robert just bought your book.
Oh, thank you, Robert. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. Assistance in this area is something I can use. So your book has just been purchased. And
well, I'd love to hear from you.
I put William. He goes by Bill. He doesn't even respond to William, I guess. So,
but that's when somebody's mad at me. They call me William.
Yeah, right. So now, is this book for? It's not for somebody that needs to hire an architect. It's really just to educate them on how they could. And on your website, matter of fact, I think I'm just going to share the screen and share your website if you don't mind.
Oh, that would be great.
And so on here, I was looking down through this, and it looks like discover your home body type. So your book goes through this?
Yes, there's a quiz in there, 20-question quiz that helps you identify which home body type you might be. And it's not meant to categorize you strictly, and you actually get to put 2 answers for a question if you wish, if you can't decide between the 2. And that will let you see what your secondary home body type might be. And then I offer some guidance for the different types, talking about what things you might prefer and what might make you happier, even to the point of having 4 palettes of suggested colors that you might use in your home, either for paint or for furnishings, throw pillows, and things of that nature.
Wow, that's really cool. So it's just a way to, you're teaching people how to make their home more friendly for them to live in.
Exactly. And a lot of the book is helping you become more aware of these things in your home. I call it putting your antenna up. So there are suggestions in there how to sit down in a room and look object by object and try to say, now, what are the shapes? What are the forms of these objects? And assess things that way. And then take pictures of your rooms and turn them upside down.
Right.
And look at them. And now you stop seeing the objects, but you can see the general composition of the arrangements of them. So it's taking you on a little journey to investigate and learn about your home a little bit more. And when you're done with that, you'll go, okay, now I get it. I see things I didn't see before. You know, I walked right by this all the time and I never took notice of it. So as an architect, I'm kind of automatically sensitized to those things, almost to a point of making it hard to be happy with things myself.
Wow.
that's my job, is to be aware of all this. And so I'm not trying to make people be unhappy with things. I'm trying to make them see where they have opportunities to improve things in their home, and then their inner self is going to respond to it. And I'll give you another tangible example. Usually there's a hallway that leads to the bedrooms in homes. And often that hallway has a blank wall at the end of it. And that can be kind of a difficult journey psychologically. It's like, oh, I got to walk down that hall to get into that room. But what if you put a focal point at the end of the hall? What if you put up an image of nature, nice landscape, and you put a light to highlight it, and that picture's on the wall? Now you turn the corner and you look down the hallway, and your consciousness moves instantly to the end of the hall because you're aware of that focal point, and you become less aware of your footsteps to get you there. And this helps you move through your home on a psychological basis, and it removes the physical part of it so much. And it gives you a level of happiness or enjoyment by seeing something that's attractive at the end of that hallway.
We have a giant mirror.
Makes your hallway look longer.
No, it's in case I ever turn into a vampire, I'll know.
There you go. There's nobody there.
Right. No, so I love that. And it's a little tiny. So that's, I mean, and that's a little tiny thing, but like it's big.
They give you enjoyment every time you look at it. Another concept, and I see the question there.
Yeah.
I've learned about it, reading about it, but I wouldn't call it completely studying feng shui.
Yeah.
Another planning system that I used on a house is called Vastu, and that's maybe subject for a completely separate show, but it's a Hindu organizing system that shares concepts with feng shui, except their mapping has 9 squares, and each square has 9 more squares in it, and they're all auspicious for different things. It has a lot of very strict rules, but it's all about controlling and focusing the energy in your home. So, the Eastern cultures seem to be more overtly aware of this. And so in my book, I'm trying to bring some of those concepts in and putting them more in Western terms. But, the control of the energy in your home, whether you overtly feel this or are aware of it or not, is actually there. The golden rectangle, the golden mean, or the golden section is one of those proportion planning elements. So anyway, my book is trying to introduce the Western mind to some of these Eastern concepts, but not trying to be a complete treatise on it. It's putting it in terms that we can use.
So, but you're taking all of this and combining it with your knowledge of architecture as well.
Right. I'm not trying to recreate Vastu or Feng Shui, but I'm recognizing there are benefits to that. But I'm putting a whole lot of other things in there. And these are the same principles that I use in the background when I design people's homes. But I'm now in this book trying to articulate them in ways that make it applicable for anyone.
Right. So along your journey of being a starving architect in the beginning, maybe even worse than starving architect, but along the way, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, and along your journey, what are some of the, because a lot of entrepreneurs watch this show. Sure. And I know, and I work with and coach a lot of business owners, and I think that there are definitely some common traits. But what are some of the things you see that are holding people back in life, not necessarily with their home, but with their entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. I think about this a lot because I had my share of adversity.
Yeah.
Some people have a lot more than I had. I'm not trying to compare myself to them, but we all have plenty of people in our life who tell us why what we want to do isn't going to work. And, you're dreaming, you can't do that. Nobody wants that, all that sort of thing. I think you need earplugs for that.
Yeah.
I like a Harry Truman quote where he said, "Get all the advice you can get." But he stopped short of saying, "Take all the advice you get." So I subscribe to that theory. Listen to it. You can learn from it, but then make up your own mind and combine that with get rid of your fear of failing. You don't know what you can do until you give it a try. And like writing these books, I had no idea that I could write books, but then I found out that I liked it, and then I found out that I wasn't terrible at it, and this all added up to a completely new turn in my career. But there were plenty of people who said, "Yeah, sure," and it takes a long time, and you have to fight yourself a little bit too, because halfway through I'm thinking, "Oh, everybody knows this when I'm writing. Everybody knows this," and my wife would say, "No, they don't.
Right.
It's your field, you know it really well." And so you start to presume everybody else does, but it's not true. So lots of people have plenty of information other people would like to know.
I think that even what I've found is they may even know it, but they're not implementing it. And right. And so sometimes it's a matter of telling your story or your version of how you implemented this thing, and it wasn't as difficult as you thought it was going to be. And then somebody else goes, "Well, shoot, if Bill can do it, I can do it." And then they start the implementation process. So
right. It gives them some support that somebody else was thinking about it.
Charles Coachman, I don't know if you saw that, but he bought both of your books.
Oh, thank you.
So that's awesome. So I think that and Robert says your website is well designed. So well done.
Thank you.
Well done. It is well designed. I've built websites for 26 years. I know a little bit about it. It's very well designed.
Well, a friend who's done that, I'll pass that compliment on to him.
It's very good.
He's a professional at it, but still.
Yeah.
I think he does a good job.
Yeah, he does. It's very nice. So what do you think, in your opinion, what is the number one thing that holds people back from experiencing true success and happiness in life?
I think it's the fear of failure, the fear of ridicule from your so-called friends and family. And that's usually from people who haven't done things themselves. You just have to make yourself step out, I think. My another one of my mottos is, well, I've done dumber things when I'm deciding whether I want to do something or not. And so, I've got a collection of things that hadn't worked. But then on the other hand, I have friends say, well, how do you do so many different things? Because I do. I don't spend a lot of time sitting and watching television. And I decide, I'd like to learn to play the keyboard. So I learn to play the keyboard, that sort of thing. And you just try to continually expand yourself and don't ever feel like, oh, I don't have enough time for that. If you want to do it, you'll make time. And if you don't let yourself get depressed by the so-called helpful comments that are in fact criticism from friends, then just plow ahead, because otherwise you just don't know. Nobody's going to be able to predict whether something's going to work out or not. The proof's in the pudding, right?
And it's also Napoleon Hill said, that it all starts with desire. You know, how strong is your desire to achieve that thing?
I would agree with that. I've often said that I'm kind of fooling myself by thinking I could do anything if I want to do it enough, if my desire is strong enough. And of course, there'd be things that I won't be able to do.
Right.
But you know, life is more interesting if you try.
It is, man. I totally agree. Totally agree. So, Bill, where's the best place for everyone to find you and follow you, or on social media? Where are you most active on social? And
Well, my Facebook page, I have to look it up here because, as I told you, I'm kind of a newbie there.
yeah,
But it's facebook.com/centeryourhome/
the well-centered home.
Oh, just that one's just center your home.
Well, it's at, yeah. Here, I'll share it, because I think if they search for, let me share your Facebook page here. They can search for the well-centered home and at center your home on Facebook. There it is.
And there will be links to my architecture website if you want to see some of my past projects.
Yeah.
And then if anybody would like to send me a note, I'll give an email address. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. It's B Hirsch, BHIRSCH at WilliamHirsch.com.
It's BHIRSCH at
WilliamHirsch.com.
Hirsch.com. Okay. Is that it right there?
That's it.
There.
You got all my consonants in there.
Yes, I did. So that's where somebody could reach out to you if they read your book, want to give you some feedback or whatever. They can email you, or
sure. And
or they want to hire you to be the architect of their next home.
Sure, we could do that. But I'm always interested in comments that I can respond to, and in particular, I would love to hear from people who do some of the things suggested in the book, and let me know how the results turned out, whether they feel like there was a good positive difference for them, or if they have any other suggestions for ways to center their homes. The book isn't the entire list of what's possible.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much for being on today. You are, man, I love what you're doing with the well-centered home. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that it's going to positively impact a lot of lives.
Well, that would be the purpose. I think that people, we worry about our state of mind, and everybody suffers from too much stress and are pulled too many different ways. Well, if your home can be therapeutic in that way and be the place where you go, okay, now I feel good. That's what we're aiming for.
Love that, man. Love that. Well, stay with me, Bill. Don't hang up on me, but I'm going to end the live broadcast. And I want to say thank you. A bunch of people shared this out, so thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I'm sure Bill does as well. And Bill, thank you again for coming on and sharing your wisdom with everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you guys later.